evening. You're listening to WEFT 90.1 FM Champaign, streaming online at WEFT.org. It is 6 o'clock and time for CU Progressive News. Welcome to our broadcast, bringing you the many voices of your community. This show is produced live in the studios of WEFT 90.1 FM at 113 North Market Street in beautiful, vibrant downtown Champaign, Illinois. I'm Sandra Ahten. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent those of WEFT Prairie Air Incorporated, UCIMC, UPTV, any board of directors or staff of those organizations. This program is a collaborative effort. Please email weft90.1@gmail.com with your program ideas to get information on being trained to be a citizen reporter or to be a WEFT host. We're indebted to WEFT and its members community who have for 35 years provided the infrastructure for independent media. We're indebted to the Public Eye, WRFU, UCIMC, and UPTV for their collaborative efforts. The times and places that you can tune in to CU Progressive News include Monday nights, 6 to 7 p.m. live on WEFT 90.1 FM, streaming online at WEFT.org. I love to listen to all things WEFT on my TuneIn app on my iPhone or my smartphone. So if you like listening to WEFT live and want to stream it on your device, you should use the TUNEIN TuneIn app. It's lots of fun. You can also hear it replayed Thursday, 10 to 11 p.m. on UPTV's YouTube, or on UPTV local cable channel 6, and then usually by that time they also have it up on the YouTube channel, so the UPTV channel 6 YouTube channel, and you could look at their playlist, and we're one of their playlists there. It's available by podcast 24/7 through iTunes, SoundCloud, or your favorite podcatcher, and luckily we had Brian Dunn, who is in the studio with me tonight.
Hello, everybody.
Come into, is his mic on? Yep. Come into the studio he came into WEFT and to the studio through having listened on the podcast, liking the CU Progressive News, and decided to become part of it. So glad to have you here tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is a dream come true.
Good. Excellent. All right. It's also available as an audio archive at weft.org through Radio Free America, as all of our shows are. You can't actually podcast music shows, but you can archive them for 2 weeks and have them available for 2 weeks. So this program, Radio Free America, allows us to archive all of our shows that you can listen anytime up to 2 weeks afterwards, and then that show goes away and the next one comes on, and that show goes away and the next one comes on. So it's always like a continuous thing of having the show available for 2 weeks. So if you have a favorite WEF show, you can always catch it, even if you can't catch it live. All right, and then we are on WRFU, thanks to Neil, who puts us on there, but we don't know exactly what the rotation is on WRFU yet, but our WRFU is 104.5 FM. It's a sister station. Through the IMC, it's a low-power FM station. All right. We had told you, and if you saw us on Facebook, which we hope you did, we hope you like WEFT's Facebook page, but we gave you a rundown of everything we were going to hear tonight, and we might not be hearing from Christina Borger because of a technical issue, but I might be able to solve that. I'm thinking of how to do it. I might be able to log into the computer here and figure it out. But we have a lot to talk about tonight, and we're going to start out with an announcement that Brian's going to give you.
All right, guys, save the date. September 24th at 3:30 p.m., you can join the People's Agenda for an afternoon of training, planning, and doing. Topics include how to lobby effectively, how and why you should get involved in campaigns, how and why we need to fund progressive candidates, an overview of the Illinois House and Senate races, and identifying applicants for open boards and commissions. The schedules for the day will be from 3:30 to 4. They will just gather and share a potluck meal. From 4 to 6, they will conduct the training, and from 6 to 6:30, there will be a meet and greet with local candidates. You are welcome to attend whatever part of the event you can, and for more information about the People's Agenda, head to www.carolamons.com/people_s_agenda.
On September 15th from 6 to 7, join State Rep. Carol Ammons for a fun and informative evening called Celebrating the Labor History of Champaign County. It will cover the history of labor in Champaign and all of Illinois. This event will be held in Laborers Hall, 108 East Anthony Drive, number 1 in Urbana. And in case you don't know, May Day originated from an act that happened in Chicago. So it should be an interesting presentation.
Interesting. So the Labor of Love concert is a fantastic full day of art and music at the Urbana Champaign IMC, 202 South Broadway Avenue in Urbana. This event will benefit the IFC and serve as a kickoff for 90.1 WEF FM's Fall Pledge Drive. Music guests include Americana, folk, country, rap, hip-hop, electronica, and more. For a complete listing, you can look for the Labor of Love Facebook event. Sandra Ahten will be displaying her paintings there, as well as sales from the proceeds of the paintings will benefit WEFT. The concert is organized by Wefty and local music promoter Todd Durnell.
That's right. Voter registration on August 21st. If you're supporting even just one Democrat on the November ballot, getting U of I students registered to vote is the single most important action you can take to help your candidate win. The Democrats are looking for volunteers to staff their voter registration table. On Facebook, you could look for the Champaign County Young Democrats page to sign up for more information or to get more information, or you can email Matt Duco at mattduco@gmail.com. Matt's running for county recorder, and he's organizing that, I believe.
All right, we also have WEFT Fest coming up. Mark your calendars for September 17th. WEFT will be hosting a street fest on Market Street with food booths, live music, and activities for all ages. This will take place on Saturday, September 17th, and kick off our Fall Pledge Drive.
We're also looking for artists to play music on the shows that week during our Fall Pledge Drive. So we're going to have tons of different live music on the radio that week. So if you're interested in performing, you can always get a hold of station manager at wef.org. She's taking that.
All right, I have a story here written by Robin Arbiter about the Lierman neighborhood. Destruction through attrition and exploitation of a rent-based block in the predominantly African-American part of the Lierman neighborhood continues, where almost two-thirds of rental units present on or adjacent to Lierman Avenue have been demolished or have sunk below habitability during the last 12 years. Where there were once 259 units, there are now fewer than 80 habitable. Recent plans by the City of Urbana and other partners to revitalize the area through new construction on the old Urbana townhome site and rehabilitation of Aspen Court fell through several months ago when their selected developer withdrew from the project. Throughout the neighborhood, housing issues are impacting family stressors and children's education. The area, which is home to many people traveling predominantly on foot, bike, or wheelchair, is also feeling the impact of the county market closure on Philo Road, formerly the closest grocery store. Concerned citizens can learn more from the neighborhood and allies at the Lierman Neighborhood Community Garden, Tuesdays from 10:30 to 12, or contact the Lierman Neighborhood Action Committee with their concerns at lnac.urbana@gmail.com, or you can contact Ward 5 Councilperson Dennis Roberts if after a drive through Aspen Court, you feel motivated to contact Chris Saunders of Green Street Realty, Aspen Court's owner, please consider copying your correspondence to interested people and entities.
Yeah, so you would want to copy them to that email address, LNAC, which stands for Lierman Neighborhood Action Committee at gmail.com, or lnac.urbana@gmail.com. And in case you don't know, Lierman Neighborhood Community Gardens, if you go down Washington Street past Philo, so you're going east on Washington Street in Urbana past Philo, and then you'll pass the convenience store that got shut down there because of a lot of activity, we'll say. Then you'll see the gardens on the right-hand side, and I think you would turn there, and I think that's where you'll find that neighborhood at. Pretty sure. All right. Another couple of grocery store stories here tonight. So that one included the fact that, County Market's shutting down out there, and it's going to leave a bit of a food desert for those folks who aren't driving. You can get to Myers out that way. But County Market was definitely an often used resource there. And the food co-op, Champaign County Food Co-op, received a letter, if you were a member there, on August 13th, you received a letter from your board of directors stating that they've discontinued plans for the new Champaign store. They said, quote, "The decision was recommended by the general manager based on updated project cost estimates and financial projections. One question, they said, was central to the discussion: would expanding a second location in Champaign be feasible and fiscally responsible at this time? Unfortunately, the answer was no. The expansion project did not meet the required financial criteria necessary to confidently move forward. Common Ground Food Co-op will continue to advance its ends of building community, strengthening cooperatives, providing education, and contributing to a robust local food system through existing programs." On social media, one co-op member commented, quote, "The people didn't give enough money to the project is the short story, really. The loans from past expansion haven't been paid, so those people don't want to give yet. Also, hype around the campaign was minimal. We had no strong leader to head the whole thing. Whoever heads this campaign has to be 150% in it, and we didn't have anyone coming out of the woodwork for that." That was the quote. This sentiment of those who had loaned money to previous expansion not being willing to give further expansion money was, and wondering why they were asked to do so in light of not having had previous loans repaid, has been voiced by several members. But note that the loans weren't due yet either. There's another concern that trying to emulate the co-op that exists in Urbana to a location that's trying to serve low income or the North End community might be presumptuous. It was suggested that perhaps instead of spearheading the effort, perhaps supporting an effort to have a co-op emerge from the people who live in that community might be a better plan. The co-op is thought by many to be too expensive for an average consumer, but in fact they do have a program called Food for All that includes a list of items that Common Ground that are discounted for all customers. The items discounted are healthy, organic, basic items such as whole wheat flour, milk, produce, bulk dried beans, which does make some of the list of staple items affordable. This program also offers a basic cooking class and an eating healthy on a budget class that teaches one how to use the basic list and create meals for under $2 a serving. I've been I think the membership co-op's up to like 3,000 and something like that. I'm number 189, I think, so something like that.
Interesting.
They used to be in the basement of the Illinois Disciples Foundation at the corner of Springfield and Wright Street, which is now apartments. But there was a large many progressive actions there for many years. The food co-op starting there, they provided refugee space for immigrants who were political refugees, and the actual kind of the founding of the Independent Media Center actually started there under a program called the Alternative Resource Center, which was a program of the Illinois Disciples Foundation. So it was kind of a little library in the corner there, and we used to play cassette tapes of alternative radio back in the day when I moved here 20 years ago. So it wasn't really that, terribly long ago, but that evolved into someone who said, well, why don't we start a storefront, and we could get founding funders, and that's kind of how the IMC IMC started. We moved from there. Then the IMC started in a storefront that's kind of across from Busey Bank. So there's a little bit of history there.
Oh, that's very interesting. Progressive Champaign history.
That's right.
There. All right, we have a story here from ProgressiveIllinois.com. So Governor Bruce Rauner vetoed a bill Friday, August 12th, that would have brought automatic voter registration to Illinois. The legislation sought to use data from 5 state agencies, including the Secretary of State's office, to automatically register voters. The bill, which passed with supermajority votes in both chambers, would let voters opt out of the program if they so choose. In his veto, Rauner expressed concern that components of the legislation clash with federal law. He also cited the possibility of voter fraud. The consequences could be injurious to our election system, he wrote. We know that non-citizens have registered to vote in Illinois after obtaining a driver's license and voted in recent elections. Among other documented cases, a citizen of Kenya registered to vote and voted in the 2004 election, and citizens of Peru and the Philippines registered to vote and voted in the 2006 election. Each of these cases of voter fraud were caught by immigration officials, not the state of Illinois. Rauner also raised questions about the reliability of state agency information, the measure's implementation timeline, and resources needed for the effort. By vetoing this bill, Governor Rauner has denied the people of Illinois a modern voter registration system that was supported by both Republicans and Democrats, said Brian Gladstein, Executive Director of Common Cause Illinois. Automatic voter registration will save money, shorten lines on Election Day, and ensure that every eligible voter can participate in our democracy. Democrats and Republicans in the state legislature should join together to override this egregious example of executive overreach. Trevor Gervais, lead organizer of Common Cause Illinois, accused Rauner of playing politics, saying that the governor's staff explained that a primary reason he did not sign the bill is because he wanted to delay implementation until 2019, after the next gubernatorial election. Playing politics with something as important as voting rights is absolutely unacceptable, Gervais stressed. The bill was drafted with input from all stakeholders, including county clerks, the State Board of Elections, and the Secretary of State's office, who made it clear that there was no problem with the original implementation date of January 1st, 2018.
I'll take it from there. Common Cause Illinois is affiliated with Just Democracy Illinois, whose members also include the Action Now Institute, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Change Illinois, Chicago Votes, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. And Just Democracy Illinois statement included that the bill was drafted in an open fashion, taking input from all of those people that they talked about, and as well as Democratic and Republican leaders. And that's why it passed with this broad bipartisan support, 86-30 in the House and 50-7 in the Senate, and yet he vetoed it. So I called Carol Lammon's office and asked her manager there, Michelle Jett, to clarify how he was able to override it with that supermajority having voted for it. And she stated that it was a process issue. Everything has to pass the House and Senate by a majority the first time, and it really makes no difference whether it gets approved with a supermajority or not when it gets passed the first time. And then if he vetoes it due to just a regular veto or a mandatory veto, then the bill sponsor has to decide if they accept the mandatory changes or want to call the bill for a second vote as it was written. That would need a 2/3 majority override. So I don't know what's going to happen from there. She stated that it's significant to pass a bill with a supermajority for the first time, as this one did, because in some cases it would influence the governor not to veto. And as well, you have on record the votes from those people who might decide to defect later, and you can try to hold them to their original position. So I think also that Rauner and I saw some other news that not only this happened, but also there's a suit filed that they're trying to stop early registration as well, or something, early voting as well, or something like that. So,
of course.
Yeah, so that's not good. I thought it was interesting, too, that, they found someone from Kenya in 2004, a citizen of Peru and Philippines from 2006. So they did some heavy digging to find 3 people that would have, caused voter fraud in this case. All right. In union news, the SEIU, Local 73 at the University of Illinois, invites anyone to demonstrate with them in solidarity on Freshman Move-In Day, Thursday, October 18th from 12 to 1, and again from 3 to 5 between the 2 campus residence halls known as FAR and PAR. That's Pennsylvania Avenue Residence Hall and Florida Avenue Residence Hall. They say that SEIU wants parents and students to know that the issues that they've heard about at Chicago State and Eastern are here too, and that we could not perform the services as promised, and that students and families have paid for, at least at past levels with the staffing levels that we currently have, and that the state budget crisis does not mean the university is broke. It's the administrative priorities that are broken. At SEIU, in addition to critical and even dangerous understaffing, and in some departments over 2 years with no hiring at all, we are facing very aggressive negotiating proposals, including potential end to the 8-hour day and unlimited increases in parking fees. Not only this, but of course all state employees are facing a potential doubling or more of healthcare cost if the governor gets his way, which is effectively a pay cut between $1,000 and $5,000 for our members, some of whom only make about $18,000 a year, and even worse for some others.
And in other union news, there is a continued boycott of Schnucks. Teamsters are asking everyone to boycott Schnucks. The St. Louis area-based company has a store in Champaign-Urbana, and Savoy. So the union has been trying for 2.5 months to get the owners to the bargaining table to negotiate the company's plan, which was to fire 234 loyal workers and replace them with workers at half the wages at the company's new $100 million warehouse near completion in North St. Louis. Here's a quote from Jobel. "We are urging every union family and through them all their other family members and friends to not shop at Schnucks." So the company gets the message that we are trying to make more money on the backs of middle-class workers is not a strategy for long-term growth in such a competitive marketplace. In the St. Louis area, they are passing out handbills. Locally, you are asked to go to the service desk and let them know you have discontinued shopping there until they reach a negotiation with the union.
All right. I think that covers our news for now, and it is 6:24, so I've got a little time. I'm going to look for that recording from Christina. We're going to go to a musical break while we do that, and then if that works out, we'll come back with that, and if not, we'll come back with Chris Evans. He is going to be my guest in the next part of the hour, where we're talking about the jail expansion and the quarter-cent sales tax, as we have a reporting from the board meeting last week, the Champaign County board meeting.
Supper cold, trampled all your marigolds. He'll never confess he ever made that mess. Tracking his mud gas, he couldn't care less. But he smiled as he said, "God bless." So Lord, help us along now that the kingpin's come and gone. Come and gone. he'll execute. Only now he's through. It's time for the switcheroo. Switcheroo. Light a cigar, lighten your load, warm up the car, shovel the road. Strum your guitar, dance until dawn, and stay right where you are, 'cause the kingpin's come and gone. Come and gone.
Welcome back to CU Progressive News. I'm not hearing myself in it's fine?
It's fine.
Okay. All right, so a little scramble there where we tried to find out whether I could get that recording retrieved online because my USB isn't working. But that's all right, because Chris and I always have a lot to talk about, don't we, Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Evans, and thanks for having me on.
All right. I'm Sandra Ahten. Welcome back to CU Progressive News. Before we start this, we should probably do a little disclaimer and talk about that the views and opinions that you hear tonight are those solely of the speakers and do not represent those of WEFT, the Board of Directors, Prairie Air Incorporated, UCIMC, UPTV, any Board of Directors or staff of those organizations. We're going to talk about the jail expansion. And Chris wrote a really good essay about it. You think we ought to just go ahead and read it?
Well, why don't we just kind of, again, refresh the listener's memory on what we're talking about.
Okay, I want you to come a little closer and Meg just over to the side so we can get you on the video here. Good.
Sure. But we should probably say that the county voted last Tuesday, August 9th, to put to a vote this Thursday, August 18th, a quarter-cent sales tax referendum for the next 12 years that will generate about $54 million, and it is dedicated toward what they call facilities.
Right.
So we should, and it's true that the nursing home, some IT needs, and $27 million of deferred maintenance on 22 other properties is intended for this $54 million. But the first priority that the county board has earmarked this money for is a $13 million jail expansion at the satellite jail, and they want to close the downtown jail and expand the satellite jail with 70 regular beds for the county jail and 30 medical beds. And
how many beds are at the downtown jail that they're replacing?
Well, they are, right now, they claim to have 313 beds. Mm-hmm. But that's including the downtown jail. But they don't use the entire downtown jail. Mm-hmm. They maybe house, at most, 50 inmates at a time over at the downtown jail. Mm-hmm. Probably less than that. And they've been doing that for years. But if they were to build 100 new beds at the satellite and close the downtown jail, it would be a total of 282 beds at the entire jail facility at the satellite. And you know that one of the things that the community's been clamoring for is a drop-off center and maybe Sandra, you could explain what the drop-off center that is intended, and the community has wanted a place where officers can take a mentally disturbed person or a person having a drug abuse problem and not clog the emergency rooms or the jail with another incarceration, when that person can just get help in the community.
Right. Yeah, I could talk at length about that because it's, first of all, we could refresh people that we had a detox center until about 10 years ago, and that was ran out of Prairie Center, and that closed down and it's never reopened, so we have no medical detox here in town, and we do know that we've had at least one death recently in the county jail due to somebody withdrawing from something in the county jail.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's just a big gaping hole in our community to not have a detox center in this area. The closest one is that takes Medicaid is Springfield, and is there one in Decatur?
I don't know.
I think Springfield is the closest one, really. We do have a for-profit pavilion, and I'm not even sure, they might even consider themselves a not-for-profit. I'm not really sure, but they definitely do not take Medicaid patients straight up.
Private insurance only, $1,000 a day at the pavilion.
Yeah. However, they do take the affordable health care insurance.
Oh, do they?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Which is, I think that is one avenue that could be looked at, is how can the county pay to people so people have the affordable health care insurance, and then they could use that facility. I do think that's something that hasn't been explored, not as an end measure, but as a stopgap measure that hasn't been fully explored. But you know what? The county isn't exploring much right now because the Times Center's closed down. So we're talking about jail diversion here. We're trying to think about how is it that we're trying to build put a $13 million into a new jail when in fact we've been asking for programs, and the community needs programming. We need drug addict programming. We need mental health programming. What we have now is not cutting the mustard, and even with and the jails are getting clogged for it. I would like to speak on behalf of the fact that I don't think it is the sheriff's problem to provide excellent mental health services at the jail. They should provide good enough mental health services at the jail for people who have to be booked at the jail if all other good mental health services have failed, right? So if we had a good wraparound system of mental health care, and all these, like the sheriff is having to handle mental health issues that should not be handled in the justice system.
Yeah, we have to ask, the first question the taxpayers have to ask themselves is, why are we prosecuting mental illness and drug addiction?
Right. I throw this statistic out sometimes, but they say that Cook County Jail is the largest mental health facility in the world. So it's not like we're alone. We get that. But, Champaign-Urbana is better than this. We don't need to be closing our men's shelter and then closing the teenage runaway shelter and expanding the jail. It's just like not adding up for me at all why we would have our priorities so mixed up. And not just about mental health either, jail diversion in general. So we could talk also about the fact that we don't have a mental health court. Mental health courts in other places work like drug court works here, and that is that if you get booked and sentenced, you can get your sentence not put on hold or whatever until you go through drug court, or in this case it would be mental health court. And I know it's got its pros and cons with it, but it would divert some of the population, not a lot, but some of the population that needs to take medicine, and if they can't stay within the confines of the law without taking medicine, and their doctors say they should be taking medicine. A good psychiatrist says they should be taking medicine in order, it can make all the difference in the world as to whether or not they're going to be put in jail. So that's jail diversion. We're talking having detox available, having mental health services available, having mental health court, and then also let's talk a little bit about pretrial
pretrial services, where you determine early on if a person is a flight risk or a violent risk to the community, and get that person out of the jail as soon as possible so they can keep their job, take care of their kids, and take care of their lives before you prosecute them.
Right. And so sometimes people sit in jail for a long time, not having been convicted of anything.
Right.
Maybe minor offenses that have added up. And I think I don't know, what is our average stay in jail? Do you know?
The average length of stay? Mm-hmm. Well, I will give you a statistic that the county administrator, Rick Snyder, gave to the county board Tuesday night. Mm-hmm. He said a third of all those admitted to the county jail stay in the jail less than 8 hours. Mm-hmm. The average stay, I would gather, is, if you figure it out, with all the inmates, it's probably about 10 days at the most.
So let's think about that 1/3, though, staying there for 8 hours. So 1/3 of the jail is filled with people who really shouldn't probably be there at all. If they're there for 8 hours, they don't really need to be there at all. They don't need to be booked, or they need to be in and out, like, first of all, they need to be assessed. Are they a flight risk? And if so, they don't need to be in jail. They need to go taking care of business.
Right. And one of the challenging questions that the jail consultant from 3 years ago asked our county is, and confronted the county board with, was, what do you want to use a jail for? Mm-hmm. And that is what's at stake here, is that, what does Champaign County want to use a jail for? Is it to do all these ticky-tacky? Let me read you some statistics just to illustrate what we mean. Some believe reducing the jail population is impossible because people will continue to break the law. Unfortunately, how Champaign County defines breaking the law has little to do with actual public safety. U of I's political science and communications professor Scott Althouse's seminar class tracked 5,016 police-citizen contacts between June 1st, 2015 and September 1st, 2015, and discovered, and here's where it gets amazing, 5,016 police-citizen contacts, 92% of the incidents were for nonviolent offenses. When the Planners Network from the U of I School of Urban Planning tracked 4,923 bookings in the county jail in 2014, they found 3,966, that's 81%, were for nonviolent offenses. So Champaign County, law enforcement is, people think crime is violent, crime is, we're only jailing the most, the people we don't want around us and the greatest emergencies. But in fact, we are jailing low-level offenders every day, all the time, every week.
A lot of times what we call crimes against property. Somebody's stealing your property.
Yeah.
Somebody's stealing a pack of cigarettes, literally.
Crimes of poverty. Crimes of
poverty, yes.
So what, Champaign County really needs to invest in is, job opportunities for people, substance abuse treatment for people, and things that will give people a life. I mean, whatever makes you not commit a crime today is what other people need as well. And so, and it's just, build programs, not jails. The organization that I participate with has, for the last 4.5 years, been trying to reprioritize Champaign County's investment in social problems. And it's sad, but the county board, with its sales tax referendum, has prioritized a $13 million jail expansion first.
And, well, let's talk about the fact that it's a sales tax, and what's it a tax on?
It's a tax on all retail sales except food, medicine, and cars.
Why are cars exempt, do you suppose?
I don't know. Maybe because that would hit the rich really big.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because it's not affecting the poor.
Yeah.
But sales tax is a regressive tax.
Probably. Well, they estimate, to be fair, The estimate that the county administrator gave was it would be $18 per person per year.
But that is...
if it's spread out evenly.
Right, but the reason it's called a regressive tax is because $18 per person per year, maybe. I'm not buying that exactly. But
well, that's the figure that was given.
Okay, I want to think about it. But
yeah.
But why sales taxes in general are regressive taxes is because they are so much of a poor person's income and so much less of a rich person's income. So in the percentage of the income that you're using toward taxes. So we're already sales taxed. I wished I would have got the figures together, but our sales taxes are high in Champaign-Urbana. They're higher. They're high.
It's been adding up. There's been a lot of quarter cent sales taxes and retail and beverage tax and alcohol tax and all these things really begin to add up. And so it would be good for the Progressive News Hour to do a study of taxes in Champaign County.
So we'll go back to the mental health center and talk about that because it is. I talked about it pretty much at length last week, but it does. I have spoken to Alan Jones since then, so I did have a meeting with the person who's kind of in charge of it in the sheriff's office and kind of got like, how has it so badly fallen through the cracks? Because we had some momentum going. There was an initiative, the Stepping Up initiative, that came forth from San Antonio to the mental health board and the sheriff's office got together and hired this guy to come and talk to us about how San Antonio does sort of wrap around preventative programs, how they treat people before they get booked. It's jail diversion. You do it before they get booked. You start with the basics of making sure people have treatment, are fed, are housed. Those type of things. Those basic things, human needs, our hierarchy of needs.
Well, it also what San Antonio found out, and you went to the Leon Evans talk that was in town, but it's cheaper for the government to do preventative services than it is to do prosecutions and incarceration.
Absolutely.
It's $50 a day for a person to stay at our county jail. Over $50 a day.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's
low.
That's low. That is low.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure it's very wildly expensive, and to do the prosecution, and then of course to send someone to prison, the Vera Institute has estimated that in Illinois it costs $38,000 to house a person for 1 year in a prison. Mm-hmm. So,
unless you're sending them to privatized prisons, which I could go on about too.
Yeah.
But we won't go there yet. But so we have this idea that we're going to get that Leon Evans has this great program. What we're really lacking in this as a starting base is a detox center and a place that's a crisis drop-off center where police can bring somebody who is a nuisance but is not a threat at that moment, right. and
needs help.
They
need, a lot of these people need housing. They need and that's a big one. Just stable housing, whether it be supervised residential treatment. Residential programs, group homes, just a straight up apartment,
right.
Someplace like that.
Right.
They need substance abuse treatment where they can get off the drugs and alcohol. They need mental health treatment where possibly psychotropic medication could be helpful.
Right.
Or
so we have these needs. We're recognizing them. We have a large consortium of people meeting, and includes a lot of people at the table. Carl's there, and Presence is there, and literally the MTD's there. Community Elements is there. Prairie Center's there. The Mental Health Board. There's private mental health providers. There's the Promise Healthcare, just Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, all there, all meeting. We get this momentum going, and then suddenly it gets derailed. And basically it gets derailed because a grant came through that was written before the Leon Evans came to town and proposed this to us, and we all started moving forward to it. So all of a sudden, a grant that was written for the Department of Justice, which I didn't realize this, so talking to Alan Jones last week helped me realize, like, why all of a sudden did we divert all of our attention to this new grant, Well, he said it was written before. It's a Department of Justice grant, but that grant is all entirely about what to do after somebody gets booked. It's about how to get the mental health assessment done and the person referred back out into the community after they're booked in jail. And that's where the tail wagging the dog thing, like, no, like, whoa. So all of a sudden, all that momentum we had going is now going to a different direction. So now all of a sudden that group has stopped meeting, and the group that wrote this grant, which is Community Elements and the sheriff, have asked many of those people, handpicked some of those people, to be on this other task force that is studying this issue. But it's a whole different issue. It's what to do after you're booked. And my question is, who do you think you're going to refer them to? That's one question, right? So who are you going to refer them to? Well, I'll tell you who. Community Elements, who wrote the grant, more than likely, right? But then let's talk about Community Elements' history in our community, and look at, is that, this is not jail diversion. So they have.
You're still prosecuting and incarcerating the person.
Yes.
That's the problem we have.
Yes. Now they have a record. Now they're in the system. Now it's all. Yeah. I get that you're trying to maybe you're trying to keep them out of prison, but the preventative measures to get them to keep them out of booking and keep them out of the jail and have less. It's just not right that this one project that seemed so full of potential got derailed so easily. So I asked him, and I don't think he should be in charge of it, Alan Jones at the sheriff's office.
Law enforcement doesn't do mental health and social work.
Yeah, and that is a mistaken thing. So then we need to understand how the Champaign County Mental Health Board works, right? And because, and that's where maybe you can help me understand it, but I know we do need to dig into this and really understand it. So there's a possibility that the Champaign County Mental Health Board's president, I guess the director of the Champaign County Mental Health Board is Peter Tracy, not the board president. I don't know who that is, but the director is Peter Tracy, and he is retiring this year. But he was the one who got Leon Evans here. But he tells me he feels like that project with Leon Evans and the Stepping Up initiative basically was moving ahead through the sheriff's department, through Alan Jones, and he doesn't really take responsibility then for it being derailed from, because the sheriff took control of it and then it got derailed, kind of thing. And I think he has issues with the county board, and he's retiring, and so Alan Jones says our hope is that the new incoming director of the Champaign County Mental Health Board will be an advocate for this and will start the movement in that direction again. So the Champaign County Mental Health Board gets their money from a tax that goes to them,
right?
Not through the county budget. Is that correct? Do you know? I don't know.
I thought it was a combination.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think you're right.
Some money from the county budget and some money from a tax. Mm-hmm. And I've heard estimates, and I need to look into this, $3 million a year that the Mental Health Board then allocates to lots of organizations, right, and lots of... Including the disability.
So the Disability Board is wrapped up with the Champaign County Mental Health Board.
Yeah, and they're only a granting agency. They're not. They don't run any programs. They don't, oversee any programs.
But the fact is that where this this coalition of folks who was working on jail diversion toward the Stepping Up initiative, which I was a part of, left off was the idea that somebody needed to write an RFP, a request for proposal, so that people could bid on this drop-off center, the services, the building, the whatever. And that request for proposal needed to be written, and then either Community Elements or Prairie Center or somebody would come forth and bid on it. They couldn't be the ones, they couldn't be part of a consortium writing the grant because that would, the RFP, sorry, because that would have been.
When you say they, who's they?
Well, Community Elements or Prairie Center were
Right.
part of this whole group of people who were organizations that were meeting toward the end of getting the drop-off center, then the detox center. But then it's like, well, they can't really be part of figuring out how to write the request for proposal because they're the ones who are going to be bidding on it more than likely. So that was another thing that sort of derailed that whole process. So my question then would be, who is going to write that request for proposal? And it doesn't need to be the sheriff's office. So that points our fingers to, it's either got to be the mental health board or the county board, one of the two.
Sure.
So that's, I think, where we need to start holding people's feet to the fire, and we need to figure out how to address the mental health board and the county board in terms of, do not spend your money on this jail expansion. Figure out how much money you can put toward funding this. You're going to put the request for proposal out there. Well, you're going to get Carl on board with it because they want to come on board. They've said they do. And Presence and other agencies, they want to come on board with it, but they're not going to initiate it. So there's got to be a base that's putting the request for proposal out there and negotiating with the players in town who are going to benefit from it, which is the emergency rooms getting alleviated, the sheriff's office getting alleviated of so much burden.
Right.
And those players are going to get alleviated of some of the financial burden. So they will be at the table saying, yes, we will participate in this way also. But it's either the county board or the mental health center that has to come through with this. And so since the county board is a common denominator of all of this, that points to them misallocating their resources at this point.
Yeah, let's not kid ourselves. If the quarter-cent sales tax that the county's proposing passes this November, and voters will have a chance to vote on this as a facilities referendum, if it passes, it will generate $4.5 million a year over 12 years. Do the math. I figured it to be around $50 million at the end of the day. So we have the money to fund a community-based treatment center. We don't have the political will to prioritize it.
Yep. All right. Yes. So we're getting the cue to wrap up. Gosh, there's so much to talk about. We're going to keep exploring this issue and keep informing you and getting all the information we can. I do have a meeting scheduled with Peter Tracy of the Champaign County Mental Health Board. He's also running for Champaign County Board, so hopefully we can get, and I know he's a proponent of the Leon Evans model.
That's great.
So whether or not that can happen, we don't know yet, but let me see. I've got 6:55. Yep. It is time for me to wrap up. I've got some things I want to say. So we're going to keep you informed about that. We're going to keep exploring this issue. And tomorrow, I understand that there is a meeting that have people, I didn't know about this group, but for years, I guess people have been meeting that's called like the Coalition of People Who Support Against Homelessness or something, which is a large consortium of providers in the area. And they are working on trying to figure out how to address the fact that the Time Center closed down, which I'm super upset about. Community Elements Rosecrans owns that, and I feel like it's a community asset that we paid for with community dollars, and then suddenly it's gone at the will of willy-nilly. It's just like, give us a chance to say, as a, that we can, how do you need help? Then ask for help, but don't just close down the Time Center. There you go. Thanks to Saxon Burns, my sound man tonight, to Brian Dunn, who is my on-air reporter, to Kevin Elliott, who provides music, to our video editor, Jason Liggett, to the UPTV Public Eye, UCIMC staff, to our contributors, Robin Arbeiter and Michelle Jett from Carol Ammon's office. I will promise I'll get to that third-party voting thing with Christina next week. I'll get that audio figured out, and she's got a lot to say about why third-party voters can't be bullied bullied into voting Democrat. We might decide to vote Democrat, but you need to stop trying to bully us into it. So it'll be kind of an interesting editorial. I'm Sandra Ahten. This has been CU Progressive News. We also going to talk to Black Lives Matter next week and a little bit more on that Green Street Realty thing with Robin Arbeiter. Thank you all.